Hi there, Nigel. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah.
I was just wondering, do you think there are 7 deadly job hunting sins?
I think there might be. In fact, funny you should ask because I've just been working on some and I've got a little presentation here.
Well, fancy that. So, what do you think the 7 deadly job hunting sins are then?
Well, the first and fundamental sin is failing to have a plan. And as we all know, failing to plan is planning to fail. So it's important in keeping your motivation up to have a plan, something that you can work to and something that you can stick to. And if you haven't got a plan, then there's all sorts of reasons why you don't actually get on with your job hunting.
Okay. And do you think that the second deadly sin might be failing to identify your ideal job?
Yeah, so many people embark on a job hunt without really knowing where they want to be. So if you don't know where you're going, you're likely to end up somewhere else. Or indeed not anywhere at all.
Okay, so exactly how do you identify your ideal job?
Well, look at what you enjoy. Life's too short not to enjoy yourself. So look at your strengths and what you enjoy doing. And also think about the organisation that you would work well in. So maybe you've enjoyed working in an organisation in the past, or you've seen other organisations that you feel would be highly motivational, and think about what that organisation would look like, what the culture would be, and define what energises you and excites you. What is it that turns you on in your job?
So a lot of people kind of use a shotgun approach when they're applying for their jobs, and they apply for lots of different jobs randomly. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, that's a waste of time and a waste of effort and can be very demoralising. So just spraying out a load of applications without considering what you're applying for is a complete waste of time, and it inevitably leads to rejection and being demoralised, and that can really turn you off and leave you in the slough, or is it the slough of despond?
I don't know. So you're saying that because people are applying for jobs which aren't necessarily right for them, naturally they're going to be rejected. They're not being rejected because they're not a good quality candidate, but they're just not right for that job.
Yeah, and the trouble is nowadays, because jobs are advertised on the internet, you'll get hundreds of applicants for every job, but it's very easy to apply for jobs randomly and waste your time and waste the employer's time because you just don't match. So it creates a lot of noise in the system. You're highly unlikely to get offered the job, or even get invited for interview, or even get acknowledged for making your application. So it can be very demoralising. Don't do it.
Okay, right. So when people are applying for a job, should they adapt their CV for the job, for the specific job that they're going for?
Your CV is your sales brochure. It needs to be well honed and engaging. It needs to sell the dream, and what you need to do is tailor that CV. If it's a sales brochure, in the best traditions of marketing, you should tailor your brochure to the customer's needs. So by the same token, your CV should reflect the needs of the employer and show how you meet those needs.
Okay. So why don't you tell us about some of the mistakes people make with LinkedIn, or some people don't even have LinkedIn profiles at all. How can you avoid the common LinkedIn mistakes that stop people from finding their ideal job?
Well, we know from research that 93% of recruiters will check you out on LinkedIn first. So, and this has gone up progressively over the last few years. The recruiters have really homed in on the LinkedIn profile. So that really needs to be 100% up to date and relevant. It's your chance to make a good first impression. If you don't make that good first impression, then you're not even in with a chance. So get your LinkedIn profile spot on. It's a fundamental part of the job search.
And we even spoke to a headhunter, didn't we, who used that word integral. He said that LinkedIn was now integral to the job search. It's no longer something on the side. It's one of the main...
It's absolutely vital. It's fundamental. It's a foundation stone of your job search.
So would you even go as far as to say that people who don't have a LinkedIn profile when they're looking for a job are silly?
Yeah, they're just missing out. And they're just wasting their time.
Alright. So how important is research and researching your employer before you apply for a job?
Well, as we said earlier, it's finding a job is a full-time job in itself, and it's a marketing job. So it's about selling you. And you talk to any successful marketing organisation and they'll tell you that a key part of their marketing was to do the research, to identify who their customers were and how they could satisfy their customers' needs. So applying for a job without doing your research makes it impossible for the employer to know that you are a suitable candidate. So look at what the employer is looking for, set your stall up to match those needs.
Okay, so a lot of people assume that the only way they can apply for a job is through job adverts. Would you say that a mistake that a lot of people make is not going direct to the employers?
Yeah, in fact, in the extreme, I would say don't bother applying for jobs.
Wow.
So I wouldn't say don't just rely on job adverts. I would say don't bother applying for jobs through job adverts. You can use the job adverts as a source of information about suitable employers and what's happening in the job market out there, but as we've said elsewhere on the job marketing adder, then there are 4 routes to the job market: job adverts, using agencies, networking, and the direct approach. And for those of you who've milked a cow, you'll know that to get the full yield from the job marketing udder, you need to milk all 4 teats. So we need to identify relevant organisations, make direct approaches to them. Just randomly applying for advertised jobs isn't going to get you anywhere today, because there are so many other people going to be applying for the same job. And the probability of you getting even to the next stage is minimal.
So for someone who has only ever applied for job adverts, or maybe tried to find a new job through an agency, how would you recommend they start going about approaching employers directly?
Well, I'd say, first of all, do your research, as we've said earlier, and identify what it is you're looking for in terms of your ideal employer, and then go out there and identify who those organisations are, who those potential employers are. I'm not saying that as part of your research you might not identify agencies who are specialising in that area that you're interested in getting into. So in that context, then agencies can be useful allies. But you need to help the agencies identify who your ideal employer is. And similarly, you might identify a suitable employer and then on their website identify jobs that they're advertising, and in that context it might be worth applying to that organisation. But before you identify that, you need to identify the employers whom you want to work for. That's the key to it. Who's your ideal employer? And then use the job market adder to get in contact with them whichever way is appropriate, in the most appropriate way. So those are the 7 deadly sins. Let's go through them again then. Failing to have a plan, failing to identify your ideal job and do the analysis and research beforehand, applying for a job randomly when you haven't matched your skills or talents, failing to produce a relevant CV, a brochure that demonstrates what you've got to offer an employer, failing to complete your LinkedIn profile and have an online presence that really sells your talents and skills, not doing the research and identifying who the organisations are, who the employers are, what they get up to, what's important to them, what they need in terms of an employee, and not making direct approaches to employers and exposing yourself to the danger of being offered a job.
So, there you have it, the 7 deadly sins of job seekers.